All right, welcome back. Up next, talk I'm really looking forward to. This is Ken Roden from Wiley, and Ken's going to talk about how human connection drives impactful learning. So we're looking forward to that talk. Let's welcome Ken.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me at this session today. I'm going to be speaking about how human connection can drive greater learning impact. What I'm going to cover in this session is the struggle that employees are having around learning and the lack of human connection that happens for individuals, the impact on organizations, and then some strategies on how to improve that for each of your organizations and for your people. But first, my name's Ken Roden. As you heard, I'm the Senior Director of Brand Strategy at CrossKnowledge at Wiley, and I'm a lifelong learner. I have spent my career focused on developing teams and individuals and really trying to understand what drives them to not only find meaning in their life personally, but also professionally. Being a lifelong learner, in 2022, I decided to learn one new thing a week. So I learned how to ride a bike, as you can see here. I learned how to use Canva, which is like a marketing slide software tool. And then I also learned how to wrap the tightest burrito possible so that nothing falls out. And I will share the YouTube video with you if you're interested, because it comes in handy more times than you would think. So being a lifelong learner, during the pandemic, I wanted to use that time to my best ability. So I set out to learn 3 things. The first was something called crochet, which is like knitting. And then I wanted to learn data analytics, whatever that meant. And I wanted to learn French. And so when the pandemic started, man, was I motivated. I downloaded all these podcasts and I downloaded some ebooks. I signed up for courses. I even dedicated time throughout each week to focus on learning one of these 3 skills. But as time went on, I got a little sloppy and I stopped crocheting because it was kind of hard and I'm left-handed and it was weird. And then data analytics just got challenging and I didn't have anyone to ask for help. And French is hard, just period. And when it came to the end of the pandemic, I didn't learn how to crochet. I didn't learn data analytics. And je parle un peu de français, but I would not be able to be out there talking to people. And when I took time to reflect on why that happened, it was kind of 3 areas that were challenging for me. I lost motivation. I started out really strong. I thought that I was going to learn all these things, but as soon as the topics got challenging and I couldn't leverage the tools that I had on a self-paced approach, everything fell apart. I didn't have anyone to talk to, and also there was no one else that I could rely on to kind of push me through to finish the course. Additionally, I was distracted. How many of you during the pandemic had to work from home and had children? Anybody? Yes. That was really hard. I was unable to actually stay focused on my training programs because it was distracting for the rest of my family to try to learn how to crochet. It's another story. And the last one is the lack of direction. I picked the things I wanted to learn because I thought they were important, and they might be, they were to me, but they didn't really have any end goal in mind, or I didn't have an end goal in mind for them. I didn't want to become maybe a data scientist. I just wanted to develop that skill a little bit. And so it was very easy for me to fall off track because I had no one to kind of check in with me on it. And in hindsight, the thing that was consistent through all of these things was I was alone. I was learning by myself. I was learning with machines and technology. And that makes it harder to actually absorb the knowledge and apply it. And I think there's a lot of parallels to how I was learning on my own to how we approached learning during COVID. We all signed into Zoom. We got fun backgrounds going. We were ready for lunch and learns and wellness meetings and to do trainings that were set up for us. And we were doing self-paced learning. And after a while, it kind of lost its effect. And it was actually this: utter and complete chaos by ourselves. And this was the instance of a CNN reporter in the States, but this was kind of what a lot of our lives were like. We were trying to keep everything together just to get the work done and survive, and we weren't able to thrive and really benefit from the time that we had. And that's kind of what we're seeing at work right now. We have 1 in 2 employees reporting being burnt out. And when they say burnt out, they're saying that they feel overwhelmed by the work that they're asked to do, and they're not feeling connected to what they're doing. They don't understand the why, and they're running into a lot of obstacles in the work they're trying to do. And part of that obstacle is the collaboration. We're seeing a decrease in how people collaborate and wanting to collaborate because it's just hard. And the way that we're working, even if you're back in an office, is different. Many people have reported, even though we're back in the office, it doesn't feel the same. They've almost lost or forgotten the skills on how to do simple things like working together. And that's led to decreased engagement. Europe has the lowest engagement rates in the world. That's pretty scary, thinking that only 14% of your employees feel that they're connected to their business. And that's what engagement is about. Are you connected to the people you work with? Are you connected with your organization and its shared purpose and values? Employees are struggling to learn. And there's some reasons why. It makes sense, right? We have busy calendars, jam-packed with meetings, jumping from Zoom to Zoom or jumping from conference room to conference room, trying to get just the work done with no dedicated time to learn. Also, if we're doing learning at all, it's by ourselves. And we had to do that during the pandemic. We had to implement some strategies that allowed learners to move at their own pace and go through their own journey. But it wasn't really prescribed. And so people were learning and developing skills that maybe they shouldn't have been, or maybe that won't benefit them from a career perspective or benefit the organization. And also the missed connections. One of the things that I've seen happen time after time is people say they miss the water cooler connections, right? Seeing friendly faces that they work with and catching up. But what about the connections that actually happen when you've identified a problem at work and are able to resolve it with the person that you work with? That's a missed connection that also wasn't happening when you're jumping from team meeting to team meeting. So I've talked about how employees are struggling, and now I want to talk about organizational struggles that have happened due to the lack of human connection in our environment. One of the best examples is the story of the junior software engineer. Now, I'm sure all of your organizations have software engineers. It's probably one of the hottest jobs in the market out there now, and it has been for the last 10 years. But junior software engineers are an interesting specimen because most of them are early career or career transitioned employees. And how we decided to meet the high demand for those employees is to have them go through boot camps or self-paced learning on their own. And so they learned C#, they learned how to use Python, they learned Java even, and those were hard skills that were required for many job postings. However, the job postings included other things like collaboration, teamwork, the ability to communicate your performance and what you've accomplished. And that wasn't taught in these independent programs. And so it caused a bit of a gap in the recruiting process or even the hiring process. When someone in the junior software developer role joined a company, they weren't able to meet the requirements of the job, and that required more from the organization, meaning that other people in the company had to step in and help. So that increased the demand for senior software engineers. So now there's huge demand for junior engineers and senior engineers, but senior engineers make a lot more money. Now you might say, okay, 20 grand, not a big difference, right? But look at the range, 59K versus 103K. So what we're looking at here is, imagine if 50 of those senior software engineers were making 103K, that's over 5 million euros that you're paying for those employees who have all of the right skills that you're looking for just because the people in the junior roles don't have them. 5 million for just 50 roles. That's incredible. Now multiply that across a global organization like Nestle or Starbucks. That can be a costly impact on your business for not having your employees have the skills that you need them to have. And how we got there is because we invested as a society in self-paced learning. And I'm not saying self-paced learning is bad, just to be clear. I'm a big fan of it. I use it regularly. But for critical skills that actually move an organization that are important to you, we need humans involved in the decision-making process and in the curriculum development of these programs. So we've got employees on one side struggling because they're alone learning, kind of on an island on their own. And then we've got costly skills misalignment. So now I want to talk about the strategies that we can implement to actually bring in a human connection. One, it's kind of obvious. Bring people back into your programs. And I know some of you are already doing this, but when we talk about bringing humans back in the programs, I actually mean have them be part of the planning process, working with department heads to understand what skills are most critical for the business. We all are resource constrained right now, and so we don't have the ability to just say, hey, we want to do everything. We want to level up all of our departments and employees. What key talent, what key skills do you need your organization to have to survive this economy? Because it's crazy out there. So things that we're looking at are things around resilience, communication, collaboration, a topic called leading from the middle, which is around middle management, understanding how to better work with senior leaders, employees, as well as their peers. It's really important to understand what skills need to be developed and how you're going to do that. And the other human aspect of that is bring in experts who can help you dedicate that time. So if it's around communication, bring in the communication facilitator, the communication coach who can guide those conversations, who can really help you with those key topics. The second is peer learning is incredibly impactful. We all know that cohort learning helps people feel connected to the course they're actually in, but there's actually a greater benefit beyond that. Imagine that you're in a course around conflict resolution, and in that course, you develop a bond with someone who you work with, maybe you see regularly, you're able to connect with. And after the course, you're actually able to reach out to them and say, hey, I want to practice the specific thing that we learned, or I want to run through a scenario and get your feedback on how I handled it. That keeps the learning conversation going just past that actual course. And now you've developed trust and a psychologically safe partner that you can experiment with these skills that you're developing. A ripple in a puddle makes a noticeable move, right? But a ripple in a lake, you'd never notice. But multiple raindrops falling down in a lake make a completely different new scene. And that's how you should think about learning when you have your peers internally working together. Now next, streamline learning in the flow of work. We've all heard the term in the flow of work. I don't mean integrates with Teams or Slack or in your HRIS system. I mean, it needs to fit into the lifestyle of your learners. There is a time and a place for going offsite for learning, but it's incredibly stressful and exhausting for people to pack up 3 days, leave their families, delegate responsibilities, find coverage for childcare, as well as just to go figure out a plan for what you do in the office while you're out. 3 days of an office means that meetings are canceled, your employees have open-ended questions. It causes disruption and then leaves the learner stressed and not able to focus on the content they're trying to learn. So we need to think about learning fitting into their day-to-day schedule so that they're able to absorb the knowledge and not be distracted by other work. Earlier today, I was supposed to be at the booth and I had to step away to take a conference call. That's just the way things are. We need to create flexibility in our learning environments. This is a sample format that we've been using that's worked quite well for us for some soft skills development. It's over 4 weeks. It has a mix of self-directed as well as facilitated sessions. It's about 2 to 3 hours a week that allows learners to fit this into their schedule in a way that fits without being overwhelming. And it allows for peer-to-peer work, as well as facilitated engagement. So what are you going to get from this? The impact of having cohort-based facilitated sessions is going to drive higher course completion, which is an immediate measurement you can show success of your programs. And that's important right now when budgets are tight. Additionally, we've seen an increased confidence in the skills developed when learners are put into the scenario of cohort-based facilitated learning. meaning that if I'm more confident in the skill that I've developed, I'm more likely to practice it. And if the organization says this skill matters to me, is important for me to know, me practicing it and fine-tuning it and getting better at it is actually going to help the business overall. And again, go back to that pond analogy or the lake analogy, more raindrops practicing that skill can change what the lake looks like. So going back to my crochet story, upon reflection, I probably shouldn't have tried to learn how to crochet. I wasn't very successful. But if I would have thought about what could have driven more impact is I could have kept learning French because I have a team here that I work with regularly. I should have invested more in digital marketing because those skills are ever changing. And I should have taken something like leading from the middle to really hone in how to navigate an organization in this new world of work we're in. And if I would have worked with my manager as well as with my L&D team, I could have maybe done something a little bit different that would have driven more impact for me as well as the business. So I want to leave you with this message. I was at the CLO forum at the end of last year in the States, and we had this conversation. The only meaningful connections that employees get now at work is through learning. And everyone in the room was nodding their head yes. Because even though we're back at work, we're not having meaningful connections where we're actually talking about the real things that we're struggling with. And learning is actually opening up those doors, especially these sessions where peers are able to talk to each other and work through real problems. And if this is true, that means that learning isn't just about the development of your talent. It's about the culture of your business. It's about the sustainability of your business. Learning has now taken on a new role, and everyone in this area is now responsible for driving the success of a business, its growth, and its life, which now changes your role. We all have a different role now as we're responsible for learning within our organization. We're the lynch piece. We are the ones who are focused on bringing all of these insights that we're getting from managers, from executives, from the market, what skills are important, what's going to move our business forward. It's our responsibility. So that's a lot of power, but by bringing yourself, your human self, into the learning world again, I think you'll be quite successful. So that's it for me. My question is, how will you drive the connection? Thank you. And I think we have some time for questions, if anyone has one.
We have time for questions. Anybody have questions? We have a couple of minutes. And as people are coming up with other things, I do have one for you. What would you say to people who say they really appreciate the need for human connection, they want to do it, they get it, it's a goal for them, but they don't feel that they have the time? What are some strategies that you can kind of say to help advise them on how to make that work?
Yeah, it comes down to priorities. I completely understand that you can't overhaul your L&D program and bring it back to where it's all human-led. But there are specific programs that really are going to move the needle for your company. For us, it's around collaboration and cross-cultural communication. That's something that we focus a lot on, and that's where we're making the investments. So you've got to prioritize what's most important and realize that you can't do everything at once, and just focus on 2 to 3 small changes you can make. Yeah. Cool. Anybody else?
Other questions? Other things that people want to know about the human connection? All right.
Well,
I've got one more before I let you off the stage. What are your thoughts on how well collaborative work online can work? Right. So we've talked about trying to maybe do some more things in person to establish a connection. Just Zoom meetings don't always do it, or Teams meetings don't always do it. But in a learning context, are there things that you can do to really better leverage the time that people have when they're in different locations, they are connecting online, not quite what we're doing here, but maybe a step more than self-paced? What can we do with that?
Yeah, so something that we've, from the learnings of actually one of the courses I've done around collaboration and teamwork, it's specifically setting time in each of your meetings that allow for you to build trust. So one of the exercises that we do with my manager is the last 5 minutes of every session we talk about one good thing that's happened this week, one bad thing that's happened this week, and one piece of feedback for each other, which, by the way, giving feedback to your boss is very scary, but it's a good way that we can develop psychological safety and trust and build that connection so that we can work better together day to day. And that came from one of the trainings that we kind of focused on.
All right, fantastic. Anything else before we wrap this one up? All right, well, Ken, thanks so much again. It was great to see this talk. Let's another round of applause for Ken.